All right. Well, today we're going to talk a little bit about trust. This is one of the few things that can't be replaced by AI, I hope. How many people trust AI in the room? There you go.
A lot.
Not be replaced. Look, trust within an organization doesn't come from certainty. It comes from and is satisfied by transparency, testing, and time. And we're going to talk a little bit about that today. I think a very important note about trust is that, it's not declared, it's earned. And we're going to talk about a little bit of how it's earned today. Let's start off by doing some introductions. Quickly, Jim Balis, CapitalSpring. I'm a partner at the firm. We're a restaurant investment firm, been around 20 years, have about 50 different brands, and about 3,000 different restaurant companies, or restaurant units.
Alex Dunn, CEO of Swig.
Ashley Robinson, CEO of the Seaker Group. I have the huge honor of helping this brand grow over the last couple of years to some pretty impressive numbers, which I'm sure Todd will share.
I'm Todd Smith, president at Swig.
Thanks, guys. All right, question number one for Ashley. Ashley, being a consultant can sometimes be a barrier for larger companies, as you know. How did you gain trust from Alex and Todd as they sort of put together their growth plan and model?
Yeah, absolutely. First of all, thanks for having me. Thanks to Prosper. My husband told me no one would hear me over these pants because they were so loud. I don't know if you guys raise your hand in the back. Is that wrong? Okay, good. They can hear me. Good. So no, you're absolutely right. It is challenging. There's this loop that plays rent-free in my head from Steve Jobs that was speaking to a room full of people, and he's like, "Let me tell you all why I hate consultants." And it's like goes viral, still to this day. And he talks about, consultants come in and they have their wisdom and they tell you what to do and then they're out of there. So this is constantly in my mind working with new people. Luckily, after 3 hours on the phone, they agreed to work with me. We sat in a room. I'm going to set the stage. So I had probably 3 team members in their offices in Salt Lake. They had 15 of their executives in the room. I had 3 team members on the phone. And I'm so excited to work with this brand. And Alex opens up and he's like, "Well, I don't really want to hire you, but I had to. So here we are." And he was like, "We're under the gun. We had no other choice." And I just said, "All right, well, let's get to work." And I wasn't worried about that. The trust hadn't been there yet because I knew I could do 3 things. And anyone in this room can do these 3 things if you're trying to build trust with a partner, which is number 1, don't ask for trust. Don't expect it. You're not entitled to it, in my opinion. It's something that should be earned and built over time. If you have to ask for someone's trust, you probably have not built a framework for smart decision making. That leads to number 2. Number 2 is build a framework for smart decision making. Typically, that means that you have transparency, you've got context, and you have data. And if you present those things in the right way, someone doesn't have to trust you to be able to make a smart decision. I also think, making sure that you are translating something into something the other person knows. I'm a data scientist, a decision scientist. I didn't expect these guys to be that as well, but I spend a lot of time understanding what they know so that I can create a framework where they feel comfortable making those decisions. And number 3 is be all learning instead of all knowing. Being able to be vulnerable, discuss what you don't know as much as what you do know, I think really builds a good foundation of trust. And we had a pre-call where we were talking about the people in our team that we trust, and they were typically the youngest, most inexperienced people on our team. And that's because they were the most willing to say when they didn't know something. So one of the things that I felt was really important, after the first year of working together was I said, guys, I'm coming in town. We were doing a post-mortem on the model that we built to project sales, and we are going to test this amongst the fleet. I had my team do it. I didn't see it, and I sat down in that room and I said, I'm going to see these answers or see the outcome for the first time right next to you. And that was my way to say, we're going to have the learnings together, and we're going to see what those discoveries are of where we got it wrong. So again, setting up that framework where we all fail and make mistakes. Hopefully they're smaller, but you want to fail in the right way, which means you got wrong and you know how to solve it for the next time. And if those things are in place, the trust typically follows. Yeah. So fast forward, I think at the last meeting, I think, Alex, you said something like, you'd have to really mess this up to not work with us anymore after completing those 3 steps.
Yeah, it's great to hear. I mean,
Don't mess it up.
I'm still trying not to.
It's great to hear. I mean, truth seeking is an important part of developing trust. Alex, you don't have a typical background. What have you brought to the decision-making process that's more uncommon among your peers, and how do you think that gives you a competitive advantage?
Yeah, so I didn't expect to be the CEO of Swig, for sure. A few years ago, invested alongside the Larry H. Miller family when they bought the company and joined the board, and then actually stepped in kind of unexpectedly to be the interim CEO. And that was...
How's that interim working out?
Yeah, that was 2.5 years ago. So I'm a builder, so I love to build, and so I'm actually really enjoying building this company. I did come from a different background. I built kind of before this 2 companies, one in the smart home technology space, another in the residential solar space, and kind of took them public. Both were sold to other public companies for about $5 billion each, and then I was really retired and was doing some investing, and that's how I kind of got to where I'm at. And so while I definitely did not come from the restaurant space, I definitely have experience scaling. And so there's, I think, been some, there's a playbook at least I've been able to use in the past to scale a business nationwide into hopefully billions of dollars. And so there's a couple things I think that have been important in lessons that I've learned in scaling. And the first is really a maniacal focus on the unit of one. Scaling only works and is only actually positive if what you're scaling actually creates value. And I actually find a lot of time entrepreneurs want to scale too soon. And I'll ask them, hey, help me understand the business, how it works, kind of help me understand the unit of one. They'll kind of explain it. I'll be like, that doesn't sound very good. Why do you want to do more of it? You know? And so maniacal focus on the unit of one. When I came to Swig, I actually went into the store for a few weeks and got trained and was not very good at most of the jobs. I've gotten better at most of them. We do have a conductor station, which is where you put all the syrups and flavors and everything in. It is super hard, and I still am horrible at it. But so I really tried to understand, hey, what's happening with that unit of one? Both from an economic standpoint, do we have the margins we want? Are we delivering, and then the operational, are we delivering the customer experience? Are we doing that? The second kind of principle that I've used effectively is once you kind of get the unit of one right, usually the way that a small business delivers good results on a unit of one is kind of by brute force. Like you just have people that are doing the right thing. There's a lot of campfire knowledge. So it's just shared. Everybody kind of knows everybody. And that is actually difficult to scale because once you start having lots of stores, campfire knowledge doesn't get passed on very well. And then you can't actually rely on just people doing the right thing. Not that they're trying to do the wrong thing, but just kind of figuring it out. And so I invest heavily in technology, really, to make sure that we have the systems and processes in place to be able to go recreate that unit of one time, 10 times, 100 times, 1,000 times, and have the confidence that we're delivering that same kind of amazing customer experience, whether you're at the first store or the 1,000th store. So that investment in technology. And then the third that I've focused on is the team. And so we have built out an executive team that is way too big for the size we are currently at, and probably way too experienced. But I've learned that I've always found success when I've had a team that the brand grows into, instead of a team that's trying to keep up with the growth. And so we certainly have put together a team to do that. Todd is one of those key pieces of that team. He brings a ton of experience from the industry that I didn't have. And then honestly, Ashley has been really amazing on the real estate side, helping us come up with that technology, the systems and processes to be able to make good decisions from a real estate standpoint. But we've done that in kind of every aspect of the business. And so I think those things, I'm just drawing on kind of experience. There's pattern recognition. I like to ask questions, and I'm pretty curious. And I don't mind looking stupid. I usually tell people it's pretty easy to make me look stupid. So like, let's get that over with, and then like I'll move forward. And so when I came in, I asked tons of questions. I think sometimes to the chagrin of some of the people on the team, they're like, oh my gosh, you know. And they were fairly fundamental questions about the industry. So I don't know if that's going to give us a competitive advantage or not, but I know it's a playbook that I've used in the past very successfully that feels very familiar to me.
Well, I think we're all expecting the $5 billion exit.
Well, I'm hoping
Another
it's
one.
more.
Yeah. Why so low?
Fair point. Todd, you have every department head sit in on the real estate committee meetings. Just curious, you know, some people might say there's too many cooks in the kitchen in a situation like that. Curious why you do it that way.
Just to make sure they're working, really. No, there's probably 3 reasons for it. The first, I think, is speed for us. Like, we're moving at a really, really fast pace.
Maybe it'd be good for context, like number of stores.
Yeah, so we just, 2 days ago, Saturday, opened our 166th store in our 17th state. Thank you. We're super excited about it. And that growth has been probably about 100 stores over the last couple of years. So it's been really, really fast. So one is just speed. It doesn't help to go through a bunch of layers when you're trying to move super fast. 2 is buy-in. I want them all to, every single one of those people has something to do with that store, right? About making it successful, whether it's a marketing guy or a chief operating officer and operating it. And so there's a lot of, I need them to be bought into what we're doing. Probably the biggest though, and I think it just came with time, is the value of counsel. I've been in the restaurant industry for 20 years. I've been at kind of every size restaurant you can be at. I was at Yum Brands and Wendy's and Sonic, and have started my own. I've been a franchisee. I've been in startups, all of them. And I think that, 20 years in now, the value of counsel, virtually every single time I've made a decision in some sort of counsel, it has come out better. Even if it actually turned out to be the wrong decision, the end result was better. And so the value of counsel, I think, is probably a little bit overlooked, especially with leaders. As leaders, we're trained to kind of think, I need to be the smart one in the room. I have to make the final decision. I'll listen to people, but then I'm going to make the final decision. And actually, we make them as a counsel, for sure. And so far, it's led to some really good results. The buy-in that you get from that, though, when you do that is unmatched.
Yeah, we were talking about that a few minutes ago, and how important that is for the outcome.
Can I add one thing?
Yeah.
I think too, it reflects the importance of the decision. We realize
That's a great point.
Yeah, when you sign a 10 or 15-year lease, that's pretty hard to change. And so these are really important decisions, and so kind of is reflected in how many people we have there trying to make the best decision possible.
Yeah, I mean, it's $1 million decision too, typically when you're building a store.
Yep.
Ashley, you've dedicated an entire chapter. She wrote a book, by the way. We're going to have a QR code. You can download the chapter. You dedicated chapter 8 to these 2 fine gentlemen here. What did you observe in their leadership and their success, and what made them different that it warranted that whole chapter?
Yeah, I think I think Todd called everyone I'd ever worked with before he hired me, and I'm going to do the same now if I ever work. It's like, you need to go talk to these guys and make sure that you're as good as these guys.
I did a lot of checks on you.
But honestly, one of the reasons was I hope more operators understand the importance of that partnership. You hire companies like mine to go, build a decision model, build a forecasting model, and they forget the engagement that's required on the operator side, and how much more successful the brand will be if you take this all learning approach versus an all knowing approach in terms of leadership. And we both have to practice that to our teams. So, I sit on these 3-hour meetings every single week. I don't contribute a lot as the CEO, my team does, but I'm sitting there and I'm listening and I'm learning to see what things are missing, what are the bottlenecks for decision making that we could build into the model. And I have a fun little image here from the book. What I hope all operators can do in the C-suite is take a scientific approach. And being in the restaurant industry, I think it's really easy for us to, forget the back of house approach. I think Gordon Ramsay's a great example of this.
Which one am I?
You guys are both Enrico Fermi. So, but Gordon Ramsay, we have this chef culture in the back of house for quick results. We need fast results, and we need it now, and things can get tense. In the C-suite, we need to take a long-term approach, which typically, ideally, is a scientific method. And I think that's missing from a lot of our industry, is to take a scientific approach to the business, which means mistakes are actually discoveries. If you get something right, that's a measurement. That is not common language in our industry. So I've worked with, a lot of really, big brands who, I've shown them oftentimes how, hey, the data that you're using to make a decision is actually negatively correlating to your sales, and it's misleading. And so often they would still use that data because they're comfortable versus being uncomfortable and taking more of a scientific approach. So, I think the culture that you have all created at Swig is saying we can be in the restaurant industry and take a scientific approach and be even more successful. And the other reason is that they're comfortable being in the valley of despair. So you guys didn't know I was putting this up here, but
Pretty rough, Ashley.
Yeah, I didn't make this graph up. This is the Dunning-Kruger effect. This is a well-known thing, but it's basically the learning curve. What is the experience that teams go through as they're becoming competent in a subject? And a lot of executive teams, like I just mentioned, will be happy to stay there at the peak of ignorance. They don't really understand their model. They haven't spent a lot of time in it. They don't really want to hear about it. These gentlemen spent more time understanding the model in the first, week or month than a lot of my clients spend in an entire year. And I think it's that part's important, but also just allowing that entire team of executives to say, as we get uncomfortable learning new data, especially everyone in the room is going to have to be uncomfortable learning about AI, learning about new technology and data that's becoming available, and making it okay that can be disruptive, and making it okay that you might not understand it. And so, I started a meeting once. I'm like, where is everyone? Todd's like, I'm in the valley of despair. And I'm like, that means you're learning. Look how much you know now. And, after a couple years, I would put these guys up against most data scientists in our business to be able to talk through their model, talk through why they make those decisions. And I'd say the entire team, really can call themselves experts at the end of this. And coming back to the confidence to commit. I think we talk about confidence like it's like an outfit or a hat that you put on in a boardroom to be confident. I would like to promote that we can sort of earn that confidence and that conviction through asking questions, being curious, taking a scientific approach. And then, the outcome is the outcome. But what we all really want is to make really smart decisions. We can't always control the outcome, but you can control smart decision making. And I think that I think these guys have modeled it really, really well, and it's something I want the rest of the industry to learn from. So I am giving away Chapter 8 for free. I have a QR code that really highlights the experience and kind of what I observed. And I have been doing this for 20 plus years, so I've worked with some of the biggest companies, and I think it's really unique, and I was proud to be able to share it.
Thank you. Okay, running a little bit out of time. So Alex, What advice would you give leaders that are a little bit more uncomfortable making a decision in the gray area? And what are important qualities they can build to earn the trust from others?
Yeah. So in every business I've built, almost every decision I've had to make with less information than what I probably would have chosen to have to make it. Usually that happens when you're growing quickly. Like if you're pretty static, I think you can make decisions easier because you can take time, you can get all the information. I'm actually not sure it leads to better outcomes, to be honest, but and that's because I believe that decision making is actually not a binary thing, it's iterative. And that actually the best decisions or the best outcomes come through multiple iterations. And usually you're like it takes 4 or 5 iterations of something to get to a place where it's like, oh, it actually is working like the way that I wanted this to work when I made my first decision about whatever it is. And so I think that if you approach decision making like that way, then it's about how do I get, it's more important actually, I think, to be decisive and to try and iterate quickly than it is about trying to make the right decision the first time you're making a decision. Now, I'd never tell anybody make a stupid decision, like you should always believe the decision you're making is right. But what I've learned is that it never is that right, especially when it's like the first one, the second one gets a little better because you take what worked and then, and push out what didn't, incorporate what worked, then you do it again. And by the time you do that a few times, you're able to get to good outcomes. And so being decisive and being able to iterate fast is actually much better than saying, if you kind of gave me the choice of saying, hey, I'll give you as much money and as many smart people as you want, but you can only sit like in a conference room and like get as much data as you want and make a decision and take as long as you want. Take 2 years, whatever. Or you can like have a limited amount of money, a limited amount of people, you have some, but you get to kind of iterate the decision. So you make a decision, then you go figure out what works, make it. I would always choose the second one. And when I built my previous companies, I actually saw that when we had more money and resources and people, the decisions actually the first iteration of the decision never got better. Yeah. It was like, even in product development, it always took like 3 or 4 tries to then get to like, oh, this is working now. So yeah. I'm a big believer in that. Trust, I think, is pretty simple. Probably most important is that you have to be honest, which you just got your money's worth. I told you have to be honest to gain trust. But that, I think, is lost on a lot of people. And if you're honest, with both good information and bad, and people know that you care about them, I think you can like gain people's trust.
Yeah, makes sense. They say there are no mistakes, just learnings. All right, well, we may have to cut it a little bit short here. Going to go, we'll start with you, Todd, since you're at the end there. Maybe just a key takeaway from the discussion today.
I think the biggest thing is recognize that it's okay to not be the smartest person in the room. I've never worked with an executive who says, oh, I'm the smartest person in the room, but it's reflected in their behaviors a lot of the time. And so your team can feel when you actually are saying you're not the smartest person in the room, but acting like it, and when you actually genuinely are open to the solution being in the room and getting to it that way.
I told you not to air the dirty laundry here.
And like you wouldn't believe the amount of re-meetings we have to have after he leaves the room. Just kidding. Just kidding. It's super transparent, honestly. Like I remember being a young executive thinking I knew better than everybody, and like nobody knows. Everybody knows. Like it's super obvious, and it's not getting you anywhere. I promise. So just be like super open. Care more about the result than you do about like where you are or what you're promoting or what job you have and the next one you want to have. Like forget that crap. focus on really great results, and the rest sort of takes care of itself.
Ashley, key takeaway.
Yeah, so true. And I do have the QR code up. If we could put it on the screen for all of you to grab. I mean, everything that Todd described is part of what I wrote, be irreplaceable. It's one thing to say, hey, build trust, be honest, care about the results. I think instinctually most people are good to know that. I think it's much harder to say, how do I do that? How do I show up every day? How do I put this into a presentation and a plan? And that's what Be Irreplaceable is all about. Making smart framework and decisions is something that AI will not be able to replace if done well. So key takeaway, to echo that, you can have the confidence to commit and also the humility to learn, and they are not mutually exclusive. In fact, they are meant to be used hand in hand.
All right. I'm not sure we have time for yours, Alex, but I think
It wasn't any good anyway.
You definitely don't.
no takeaway. Well, look, thank you guys so much for being panelists, tolerating me and the question and process. Would love to thank everybody in the audience, and certainly Prosper. What an incredible conference they put on every year, and one that means so much to all of us. So really appreciate everything that Dave and Luke and the team does. And boom.
Out of time.
Okay.
Nailed it.
Thanks all. Nice job.
Thank you.
Guys, thanks, guys. Great.
Nice job. That was great.